to another episode of Hobby Night School, and we have a really special one. We have Tom from Pancake Analytics. He's
Complete nerd. Complete and total nerd. If you don't want to think, shut it down right now.
So, Tom, I had the pleasure. I'm sorry. I apologize to Jeremy in advance.
Tom, Courtney's a professional. You see how she gives me no attention, like as if it's going to shut me down.
That's the mom in me, where it's like if there's bad behavior, you just ignore it, and eventually they'll like get bored and move on. And Jeremy is like a child, so sometimes that works.
No, Tom is my guy. So let me tell you why. I am on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, and I post pictures of coffee.
Yes.
That is what I do, and now I get tagged by random people with a picture of coffee, and now I feel obligated to be like, hey, that's a cool picture of coffee. Well, I don't know like how the algorithm works. Tom definitely does. Tom's got the algorithm figured out to a T.
Yes.
So I went searching his page, and my man posts pictures of pancakes on a daily basis. And not just a feeble-ass flapjack that's laying there. Something that's both buttery and smooth, light and fluffy, and always has some accoutrement on top.
Do you know how I know where you're going with this? Is that I sent Tom an article about pancakes the other day. So your coffee and people sending you coffee is probably the same as poor Tom getting tons of pictures of pancakes now.
Well, I ask for it every once in a while if I'm bored on a Sunday.
Did you make the spaghetti pancakes, by the way?
No.
You gotta let me know when you do it.
My wife also sent me the same article. My apprehension around it and hesitation is...
How do you cook it evenly, right?
It's already a struggle to get my kids to eat pancakes with me. So that's why now you see, and I've been painting with icing on them.
Oh, yeah. I did notice that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so my son will only eat a Jack Skellington pancake. I don't think he'll eat spaghetti pancakes yet.
Maybe they'll like it. It will be something different. It'll be fun. You can make them in different colors. Now I want to do it. Gosh darn it. So Tom is here joining us. I had the distinct pleasure of watching Tom kind of break down his analytics at the National last week. It is so impressive and interesting, and it really makes you think about the way that you're buying and collecting in a totally different way. Me personally, maybe not you listening, but for me, it really made me think a lot more about, why I was doing what I was doing, if it was worth doing it the way that I'm doing it, and is there a better way? So I watched him do Pokemon because I wasn't there for your first presentation, but I did watch your TCG one, which for me is even more interesting because I'm like just starting into that area. So any education that I can give myself to like have a slight advantage over where I'm at now is always beneficial. Today, however, we're going to be talking about something a little different. We're going to be talking about sports cards, which is pretty cool. And is this kind of a relatively new venture for you? Let's talk a little bit about that, and then we can like really just dive in.
Yeah. So not a new venture for me. Let's go back to about 2017. The first analysis I ever presented at a conference was a K-means clustering on NBA players that segmented the way they play on the court and how they score. And the idea of that output is you could get prospecting, look for those that are under the radar that are paired up statistically with Curry, with LeBron, presented that at a data conference, structured that white paper. So it was a peer-reviewed white paper that then I had to do as a deck. It goes through like a whole panel approval thing. But I structured it like the 4 quarters of an NBA game.
That's so cool.
So this was before, I was thinking about Pancake Analytics at all. The fun challenge was they stopped sending, this was with my company, a marketing firm, stopped sending us to conferences unless we were going to present, and they knew like how hard the hurdle would be. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to submit. And, I got accepted in the analytics track the first time. So bosses were there, a lot of people in the crowd from my company. And everyone packed the room because it's like NBA analytics, and I was just making a bunch of jokes the whole time. I led off with like, how I grew up in the '90s, 90s in Brooklyn, Knicks fan, and we're gonna pick some diamonds in the rough, something Knicks management could never do. They could put all their chips in on Ewing, after the dry ice with David Stern was done. I
my
mean, you guys are smirking because Chicago.
Yeah.
Still envious of all your Patrick Williams buys. It's like, ooh, could I have somebody exciting? Do I throw everything into RJ? No, I picked up a couple of Brunson RPAs. But,
nice.
I like Brunson. We've picked up some Brunson too. So
who knows how long he'll last and when the Knicks will do something.
So that is hard. That's so when you do the analytics for like sports, it's different than like listening to it about, TCG, or even like when you and I talk about Disney, because there's a lot more variables as far as these are human beings that are fallible and it's not just the market, it's also behavior.
Yep,
So
a lot of human behavior in there, more factors, more variables. Luckily, the models that I run will pull out the significant values for me if there's any significance. So it's 80% of the job is ETL, data extraction, coding, and that little 20% is the actual model analysis. And they just made it so easy now with packages. But
how often do you run into a situation where your eyes and heart tell you one thing, but data in front of you tells you something completely different, and then you're internally battling like, what do I go with?
Yeah, like it's still, you fight it all the time. For me, it's a lot on the non-sports side. Currently, I'm building it's kind of like a collaborative effort with some Marvel YouTubers. They did a survey, and I already have propensity scores for Marvel, so I jumped in. I was like, hey, let's collaborate and let's actually build a cool collector's tool. And I was looking at the output just like a couple of minutes before joining you guys, and I'm a notorious Black Widow, Spider-Gwen collector for my daughter, and the model shows like, the sales just aren't there to be considered like collectible, and it's like, oh man, but I know I collect it. With sports, it's always hard. One thing that we'll break down tonight is the NFL type quarterback prospecting, statistical lookalike matches. That's where it's like, well, but I want to collect Justin Fields, right? You'll be in that position, but this model's going to show you like statistically where he's lying. Kind of like what his ceiling is.
All Justin Fields. We have one card left, and that thing will move like.
So here's the thing. Emotionally, I don't know if I'm prepared for this. I have to tell you, I was going through your deck and I was like reading it, and I'm like the way that I'm understanding this is I'm like, oh no.
And I'm like, say something, Court. Go get some of that smoke. Get some of that smoke. She's like, I don't want that smoke.
I don't like it's too much smoke. I'm gonna get burned. This is fire at this point.
Yeah, but I mean that output, it's fun, it's useful. It already it validates some of the concerns sports collectors already have, the critical ones. Right. It's like, you're baking in 5 Super Bowls into young quarterbacks. Like, don't do that.
Yep. It's rough. It's so rough. All right. Well, I'm ready to get into it.
All right. Let's go ahead and see if I can share. Might have to share the website. Let's see how that goes.
While you're pulling that up, I will say. Do you need to
add those in there, Sam?
Do you want this one or do you want this one?
Yeah, let's go ahead and do the deck. We can come back to the website later because I can actually show you the table output. And we can look at it.
Want to take our logo off?
We're really breaking the budget over here when you get Tom from Pancake Analytics on.
Yeah.
Got the whole production team making things happen.
All right. So pick and rolls, probabilities, and play action. I like to play with wording. in all these decks. So just get ready for that. There'll be some jokes for like true collectors out there. But it's a sports data science discussion. A little background: CGC Cards and Sports reached out to me to see if I was going to the National. No, I was actually double booked. I was going to do Comic-Con, and I had some apprehension about going because, I'm the non-sports guy. They're like, oh, there's non-sports now. And so they took care of me, powered me to go there, canceled on Comic-Con to do this. But one of the caveats was you got to do a sports one at least. So this is all going to be net new is what we see. Really broken down into 4 key segments, right? There's going to be a panel introduction, a Q&A at the end, but really it's about teaching you data science through sports. We're going to find some diamonds in the rough. It's reusing that NBA segmentation I mentioned earlier, so we'll see the details of that. We'll do some propensity modeling to answer a question, hot topic: do player performance drives prices? Spoiler alert, before conducting this analysis, I was in the boat of like, player performance doesn't matter. I always thought like, oh, rarity, odds of a card, but I was surprised with the results, but it's useful. When should I sell? When should I buy? Another questions commonly asked, but it's going to be a lot of fun too. And that's a survival curve. So what it'll give you is the probability of when to sell, when to buy. We'll look at sealed wax baseball for that. And then another just jokingly title: nobody could have predicted this market. You hear that from every content creator out there, but actually it's just sales data. You can predict it. So I'm going to show you how to do it.
Breaking all hobby content rules right now, you guys. You're hearing it first on Hobby Night School. You can predict the market, guys.
So right out the gate, right? I have to start defending myself. So here's the who I am. Like, why?
See, nerd. I told you.
This guy make all these statements, So I just try to put myself in the audience footsteps. Who's this nerd up there wearing a statistics shirt or the real true force calculation, which I wore at the Pokemon one.
Who was it? Oh, I listened to Freddie Prinze Jr. break down the way that the force works. That was the best. The way that he described that made me understand it more than anyone else ever. You know what I'm talking about? That video of him kind of like explaining the balance between good and evil. I was like, damn, that makes so much sense with the twins. I'm like, I'm an idiot. Like, how did I miss that? So sorry.
And if you guys really want to go down the Star Wars rabbit hole, search, you can Google it. I don't know if you actually find the cut, but Topher Grace.
Topher.
70s show.
Yeah.
He made a super cut of the prequels that is apparently better than what Lucas did, and the focus is switched to Obi-Wan.
It's wild the way that like people have, the propensity to go through that and like really make that kind of like breakdown for something like that. But and it was a short video, but the way that, and now I'm gonna go look for the Topher Grace one, but the Freddie Prinze Jr. one was really well done. Really, and he was so angry. I loved it. All right, I'm sorry, I'm on a tangent. Let's go back.
We went down the rabbit hole, but so this slide is 10 years of career experience, data science, in the lens of hopefully what they're here to talk about: sports cards, other trading cards. Last paragraph is, you can argue with me, have some rants. I do it all the time too. I'm a fan. And then here are some of the conventions over the past 5 years I've attended. Hopefully there's some in the audience where they get like, ooh, I've heard of that. And then we ease into the more humor, just trying to show the correlation between pancakes and sports.
Okay, let's go.
All right. So this is going to be our pregame data science 101 with sports. The idea here is, hey, if you know what I'm going to show you on the next slide, sports, analytics. You can be an analyst. You can draw some insights. I'll teach you how to read a graph, just by knowing these players' behavior. You're running just algorithms in your head to make a purchase. Everyone does an ROI pro forma. So here we go. Correlations: positive, negative, and no correlation. Positive correlation, just think of Allen Iverson's volume shooting. So the more shots that Allen Iverson attempts, the more points he's going to score. So it's an upward motion.
Just got
Now, for the fun part, negative correlation: Kyler Murray's game time. So the more time he spends playing video games, the less time he spends watching game tape, and vice versa. So, and then I make a joke about how his contract, the Cardinals actually put it in there. He has to limit video game time and play more game time.
Yep.
No correlation. So this year there was a collaboration on shoes, signature shoes for MLB players, some retired players, first time, just like all-time greats, current players as well. And then I grabbed a data point that I already knew had no correlation at all. How many World Series wins have you had? Has nothing to do with if you got a shoe or not.
So I watched his Pokemon one of this, and it was like the powers that the Pokemon had, and he did it. This is awesome. This one I actually understand better because I don't know Pokemon as well. So
the Pokemon one, you have to really know like the main series game, and
yes,
you're talking about like Dragon Dance,
Burst
and Splash. I think
Splash
you were in the
funny.
you were in the crowd and said, "Ooh, I got a Gengar at least."
Yes, I did.
And now I get a little hypocritical of what I said for the crowd, but correlation does not mean causation. This idea is, I think I do a spiel on like, don't be afraid of AI, machine learning. You hear like, oh, Skynet, Terminator's coming. Here's why I am not scared. So if you fed into a model Cracker Jack sales and New York Yankees season wins, it's going to think it's a direct correlation. But we all know there's several other factors in between these two data points. But the model, machine learning, is going to graph this every time. So obviously, hey, if the Yankees are winning, there's more people at Yankee Stadium.
Yep.
You're going to sell more of everything. But selling Cracker Jack sales has nothing to do with the Yankees winning.
I mean, if they sell more Cracker Jacks, that doesn't mean the Yankees are going to win.
Exactly. And then we bring it back to collecting. And the idea is, think about your own purchases. You're not just making a purchase off of one data point. It's, hey, I like this team, or I feel strong about this player for X 20 some odd reasons. Now we're going to get into the weeds of it with segmentation, finding diamonds in the rough. I do a heartfelt story around like one of the joys of collecting, being a sports fan, and probably the biggest challenge too, which is, when players get injured, somebody else starts and takes over. Tom Brady. People who are steals in the draft. Like, how do you predict any of it? So we're going to show a model that'll find those diamonds in the rough, as long as they already have some data here. This slide is quick overview of segmentation. So I don't necessarily think you need analytics to collect. Heck, you can just walk into a store, buy whatever you want, have a great time. But here's how it can really enhance your collecting experience. You walk into a card shop or on the floor at the National, you have no plan. Usually, even if you have a plan, you throw it out there. So you're the top left quadrant, Jordan Fleer. Barely can see the trees from the woods. Modeling and segmentation gets you to the bottom right the quickest. So what that means, it tells you the most about the data, most about your sales, most about how to collect. It's only as good as the data you feed into it. So here is that model where I spoke about how it's about playing style.
Right.
when I presented this analysis, it was I called it like pace and space. Now a k-means cluster, the model that's going to run actually is about space between data points. So it's like a pun on basketball play and what the model does. So all KPIs, just a list of what I thought defines like, okay, are you a good player regardless of position? So there's some like negative sentiment in there too, like turnovers per minute. The more you have that, the worse it is. There's percentages, totals, averages. The idea is to show that like, wow, why would you ever model off of that? It's all different ranges, different scales. Well, we can standardize it. So that's the first step of this model. It makes everything same playing field, apples to apples. Then there's going to be a nice little funny graph called an elbow curve. When we get to it, you'll see it's a literal elbow. It tells us where to make our NBA segmentation at. And then we'll see if it passes the sniff test. So that silly graph is on the left. It's telling me at which breakpoints it covers variance and data. So,
Okay.
So it tells me, look where it bends. Shows me at 3 segments, 6 segments, 8 segments. Then you got to make the decision of how many groups you want to talk about without putting people to sleep. So I went ahead and went with 3 because that's my first big noticeable elbow.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Now, one of the drawbacks, as you can see on the right, is that when I only choose 3 segments, there's a whole bunch of overlap. But
Right.
we
Okay.
could go the 8 and you fall asleep and you'll see like 8 segments. So
That's a lot. Yeah.
What was the significance of Aaron Gordon on the last slide? Because I know that this is all well thought out, and so I'm curious as because you kind of hurried past. Why is Aaron Gordon there?
yeah. So the idea is sometime to trigger collectors.
Well,
Think about all the dunk contests she should have won.
I love it.
That's oh,
Also,
okay.
I look for imagery that I can reuse. MegaCon's in Orlando, so that's a good trigger as well.
Oh yeah, there you go.
For the Magic fans.
Smart.
Hey, you guys kind of got a championship indirectly.
Oh,
You lost another young stud.
that happens. It's like the Lions, only for basketball.
Let's stick to the data, Tom.
I'm enjoying him talking a little smack. I'm not gonna lie.
Here is the prove it to me. Does it pass the sniff test? So I just pulled some random samples from each cluster. Top tier: Kevin Durant, LeBron James, Steph Curry. Tier number 2 is more of like defensive, play in the paint, never shoot threes, never make threes. So Gobert, Whiteside, Turner. Cluster 3 is interesting, right? Because they're kind of on the cusp. Porter Jr., Klay Thompson, Al Horford. So what's really interesting is when you think of ceilings and floors of collecting prices, right? This model, and I call it out to the right, statistically, Klay Thompson is closer to Porter Jr. and Al Horford than he is to Steph.
San Francisco is triggered, my friend.
Oh my gosh. I'm looking at these. I'm like, some people are going to be real mad at these. The emotional connection people have to their teams is somewhat more. I feel like it's more like even than TCG because people have their favorite, characters or whatever, but it's really about like the game itself and the overall aspect of it. Where sports, I feel like people get very emotionally attached to their team, regardless of whether or not the player is as good or bad as everybody says they are.
Exactly. And then I, self-promote a little bit. Your segmentation in action.
Now that I've dabbled in TCG and I got my first black labels and I'm in that space, I always bring up and like this is weird, it has nothing to do with anything. As a family, we have a number. and that number is 83. And if you were to ask my kids, any one of them, they say 83 like this, 83. And it comes from this bit that was on The Score, which is a radio station that I listened to since I was a kid. And so, like, their numbers, their jerseys are always 83. And so when you did the TCG 83 and we, like, kind of nerded out, so, like, I would do this. I don't name drop because that's beneath me. But I'll be like, yeah, I was just looking at the TCG 83. Oh, by the way, that's Tom. That's my guy. I know him. Like, oh, he's your friend. I'm like, well, we did a podcast together and we retweet some stuff. So yeah, we're basically bros.
Best friends. We're best.
We're besties. No, I can't actually claim the 83. Mine was it started off at 402.
Yeah, they dialed that back real quick.
Then Christina jumped in and was like, we need to like reduce this just to get it into production. Like, okay.
If it was Christina and Haja, I wonder if they had something to do with the 83. I mean, they're from
Chicago.
They're from Chicago. Now I'm gonna have to ask her because that
I got it down to 82. And then she said, how about we call it 83? Sure. Add one more card in there.
Yeah.
I bet you Tom was originally at like the TCG 3,786,354. He's like, I'll give him the light version, the 402.
The definition of overfitting.
I like it though. I'm here for it.
Oh, now the fun question. Player performance drives prices. You sure about that? So more humor in imagery right out the gate.
Rogers.
When I do Will Greer and
anyone who's like listening to this is like, what is going on? You have to watch us on YouTube, guys. If you're listening on a podcast right now, just put it away.
I just shots fired.
Open up your phone or your TV. Open up YouTube and look at what this guy's doing right now because he's stirring the pot.
Oh, I mean, you'll love it. He has the deck. We're having a Zoom meeting together at the end of the month to go through it. So here is the best approach to do it. It's called a propensity model. Typically, it's used to identify at-risk transactors, which is normally called churn in the credit card space. But essentially what it is you feed a bunch of data. You do a couple like exploratory analysis first to kind of get an idea if it can be predictive. You put what you're trying to predict, and it'll give you probability scores for everything that you throw in there. Also give you the significance. So went ahead and created a crazy data set, sourced Card Ladder and Pro Football Reference, Card Ladder for all the current values, average value, our predictor value for all these NFL quarterbacks is going to be yes or no. Are you greater than the average value? So think of like Tom Brady, he's the top like per card because of his contenders ticket card. So in this data set, he would have a value of 1. The model looks for ones and does that probability. So we put in games played, QB winning percentage, total league MVPs, pass completion, yards per attempt, Super Bowl champ, Super Bowl MVPs. I tried to think of every behavior of why we collect and every single argument of why we don't collect someone. So more
a lot.
Trigger with data. So remember, I was on the fence of like player performance doesn't matter. This model is 77% accurate. Usually you go to market with something when it's like 65%. So this is higher than go to market. So you throw it into production immediately. It tells us 3 very important pieces of information. We care about thrown interceptions, so less the better. Total Pro Bowl appearances, and then total Super Bowl MVPs. So we value Pro Bowl attendance over Super Bowl attendance. But man, if you win that MVP,
That's wild.
we're going to collect you.
Yeah.
Because people are prospecting, right?
Yep, exactly. So here's another prove it slide. Winning doesn't only matter. You need to win in style. That's where the MVPs come to key. I also call out the two least categories where I'm saying like regular season performance doesn't correlate. I think that's where the prospecting fails, right?
Right.
So completion percentage and yards per attempt are not significant. Now, more throwing shade, but it's factual shade. I gave a little history lesson on, and I did it at the National to the crowd, of where the statement Will Grier is more investable. I think it was like 4x investable than Kyler Murray. Bill Simmons has an analytic type firm. Not sure if he runs it anymore for ESPN, but I think it's like 380 or 3080. They run a bunch of like segmentations, modeling, propensity models. They ran their own propensity model, and their article was the NFL is not drafting quarterbacks right. And it showed a table in the article, and you had Kyler Murray and Will Grier right next to each other, and they almost had identical probability stats.
Wow.
And the title of the graph said probability of being successful in the NFL. Then there was a tiny asterisk. The asterisk was below the figure, and it says what they were actually predicting, and it was, would a quarterback throw higher than league average yard per attempt at 7.4? So now, as football fans, that does not matter. Like, you got to win games.
That's such a
You need to be in
weird
the right situation. So, and their model was not accurate either, because Will Grier's career yards per attempt is 4.4.
You're just watching this and being like, this is crap and I hate it.
He's doing one of these.
I just think it was like deceiving with data,
Yeah.
You got to be non-biased, be factual. I would have never tried to take college data and try to predict NFL performance.
No way.
It's totally different. Yeah.
It'd be way easy. We'd all be working in the NFL right now. Now for another fun one. I get loaded in DMs all the time. When should I sell? When should I buy? Probably the most asked question. Why is it important? You want to optimize your return. You don't want to overpay. A lot of people will say you'll never sell at the peak. You'll never buy at the valley. So in this section, we're going to try to challenge that, not dodge the question. So we're going to swing for the fences. We're going to analyze sealed baseball wax. So I sourced waxstat.com. They track price history since release date through manufacturers. So you can also see pre-order sales, currently what it's doing through manufacturers. eBay's pulled in there as well. But what we're going to build is a survival analysis model. And what it's going to tell me is when the majority of our baseball wax is going to hit.
I have an internal bias about this, so I'm very curious to see if I'm right or wrong. I'm very excited.
I think you guys will be a little surprised, or it might not be surprising, right? So the reason why I chose 2022, because I'm trying to avoid the pandemic, the boom, and then I also want enough time in the post period to look at this. So this one is going to be when to buy. So when it hits its lowest point, it is actually 5 to 6 months after release. So when I presented this, I fall into FOMO all the time too. You want to secure your product, but data states, well, you should probably wait about 5 months. I mean, what's the odds of you hitting a super anyway, right?
And what's the main driver in that? Is that at that point, does it take into consideration that the attention will shift from one product to another product?
Yep. There's a lot of releases drive it. That's, collectors have their secrets. I have my secrets, and I always target older, but really like release this year sets once a new set is released. Like I don't know if on my feed I'm rainbowing Black Widow from Allure. Allure is no longer the shiny new set. So I've just been, okay, eBay sale,
Nice.
auction, pick off. But if I tried to do that right out the gates, they were selling for like the out of 25s were going for 500, and I never thought I could even get a white diamond, but you get some steals. So same thing with sealed wax. When is the best time to sell? 7 to 8 months, right? So that window's tight. So the model says, okay, 5 to 6 months buy, and then, oh man, 7 to 8 months sell. That could be a mix of supply and demand starts coming in. Maybe larger cards haven't been pulled yet, but here's just statistically speaking for everything. Now, obviously, there's going to be some nuances and niche in there. Like, I would not try to apply this to like flawless or anything like that.
Right, this is more like regular people wax, not like rich people wax.
Yeah. The wax for all of us. So really 3 things to take away. FOMO is real, but you can wait according to the data, right? For majority, depends on what you're trying to buy. I kicked out pre-ordered prices out of the model, but I did analyze it. And this is where like it might surprise you, might not. 80% of the pre-order price was not the lowest price over time. Thank you, third-party retailers out there.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, guys. You're really doing the damn thing, aren't you?
Like, I don't know if you guys are following Marvel Masterpieces is coming out finally, 2023.
So I follow that. Jeremy doesn't. I definitely have been keeping an eye on it. So
now pre-orders are almost 1K a box.
It's insane. It's insane. We actually was just having a conversation, and this is like totally off topic, but of the pre-orders for the Zero Cool Stranger Things just came out, and they're like so much less than I thought they were going to be, and everyone's like they're so high, and I'm like, based on like where I thought they would be at had they released them in November, this is low, and I'm very excited because I can afford to buy more than I thought I was going to be able to.
Exactly. Like if you're mainly a sports collector and you've bought modern, then you start seeing non-sports prices, you fall into like, ooh, this is cheap. Like this could be my new norm.
I can rip an entire case for the cost of a box.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you have a much better ROI in sealing.
Yeah. And unfortunately with the Stranger Things, I don't think the ROI is going to be there even for what it's at right now, but I'm still excited about it, and I'm buying, and I want to buy it because I want to buy it. It's, you and I were having that conversation about Lorcana sort of on Threads yesterday. Yeah. It's more of like how much is out there too. Like that changes the analytics, right? Like if it's a product where they make like 20,000 cases, that's a lot different than something where like we were talking about Flawless, where there's significantly less out there.
Pop reports on TCG is not a fun time.
And it's almost like they don't care though. That's what you were talking about at National. It's like TCG people, they do not care about pop reports or
don't care, because you build this, especially when it's Pokemon, you have like this relationship, this journey, like what I said at the National, where it's like, you went into battle together.
Yeah.
I'm gonna buy up every Charmander.
It's wild to me the way that like that doesn't matter as much with TCG as it does with sports. And if you're collecting one and you're moving into the other, I feel like you see a lot more like sports people like meandering over to TCG than you see TCG people coming over to sports. And I think it just blows their mind. It blew my mind. And I was never much of a TCG person until I got now, like recently. And it was surprising to me.
Nice. Now, some caveats of this model, right? And how you can improve on it to make it fit those niche sets and niche occurrences. Rookie class, print counts. We already touched on print counts a little bit, but you get into like a little bit of overfitting at this point. But the idea is like, okay, like let's say you buy some high end like sapphire, top sapphire, and you want to understand like that value over time. Then you can get more variables in there specific to that. I also wouldn't just take, hey, we talked about 5 months, 7 months. This was built on baseball. Like, don't apply it to basketball, please. Don't apply it to football.
Yeah.
You have to rerun it.
I wonder what the disparity between all the different sports would be that way, because there's so many more baseball games. And if you're arguing that like player performance affects sales with like hundreds of games of baseball, that's a lot different than like 17 football games too. That's crazy. Wow. You're blowing my mind.
And now to the nobody could have predicted this market. It's reference to the boom, to the inevitable correction. Everybody saw it coming, but you couldn't
really
predict
I
like
love
that you call it
Bull at the peak.
$810 John Morant PSA 10 base card. Like what? You know how many people like were really mean to me on like TikTok because I was like, base cards shouldn't sell for this much, and they're like, "You're what's wrong with the hobby?" I'm like, no, I'm just telling you. I'm not trying to be mean, but it's a supply and demand thing. I like that you call it correction and not a crash. Thank you for that.
It's a correction. I mean, you'll see some of these graphs on the next slide or a couple of slides. I mean, like correction. If you just take out the boom, it's actually a nice steady organic growth.
Yes, look at a Ken Griffey card from like the price in like 2015, and now look at it now. It's up. If you take out the weird like, hey, everybody's at home buying sports cards randomly thing that happened.
Yeah. So how we're going to predict the market is a Holt-Winters time series, also known as triple exponential smoothing. Works very well with seasonal data. And as sports collectors, right, what's like kind of the number one rule? Like never buy in season, buy in off season if you want the lowest price. Like do your speculation that they don't ride the hot wave of what's coming. So
if you're buying something mid-season as they're playing the best game they've ever played, you missed that boat and maybe don't do it.
Yep. And it also picks up on seasonal patterns such as the NFL draft. For soccer, it picks up World Cup hype. So all these like seasonal patterns are already out there. So what does our data set look like? Card ladder, week ending, index values. Data goes back to what's ever in their system. Most cases, we're talking about maybe 2020 that the model actually picks up on, because I have to put in parameters for each different IP. So right now I model 7 of them, including Pokemon TCG, Marvel for non-sports, but basketball, baseball, football, hockey, soccer, and more triggers with imagery. Make sure I got that. Make sure I got that poster.
My goodness.
But it really tells you some interesting narratives. So this current model that I showed for the national predicted all the way out to September 2023. Short-term lift. So what I do is I look at month over month of the predicted values. So September versus August. Everything's up month over month except for Pokemon, which the model expects 3% decline. How do I know the model works? It's got a MAPE of less than 11%. I force it to do that when I'm picking my parameters. So you got to at least be in that excellent model range. So MAPE is mean average percent error. So in other words, it's like I make sure they're at least like 89% predictive.
You're
What I
saying
was,
words that everyone's like, I remember those from high school.
it's like, why did you?
School sucked then? School sucks now. I'm tuning out.
So back to what I was talking about. Oh, when we look at those graphs, if you take out the boom, it's nice steady growth. You can take that in all of the 7 graphs to the
You can
left.
see it. You can see it.
Just act like it didn't happen, and everyone's up, everyone's happy.
Well, except for the people that bought during that time. Well, they're not happy.
They're getting the middle finger.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it also tells I do 2 other normalizing stats because I don't just want to be sharing, hey, month over month, everything's cool and great, right? The boom happened. So year over year, Biggest Losers, Marvel, Pokemon, basketball. 2-year perspective, Pokemon, baseball, basketball. The only common theme there is, thank you, Logan Paul. So got everyone. And then I broke down actual just detail. So the month over month change, a little talking track about seasonality. So one of the outputs of the Holt Winters is I can build a seasonal index. So I share these monthly and it lets you know, okay, good times to buy, good times to sell. So if it's over 0%, that means cards sent tend to sell higher than the forecast. If it's in the negative, they sell for less. So also another like sniff test.
Pikachu, red cheek Pikachu, all sad.
All sad because Pokemon tends to have like the longest off season
Yeah, unfortunately.
because of all the new sets they release.
It's
much to buy.
constant. So much all the time.
And they've increased the hit rates. I mean, I bought into a Whatnot stream, and the Whatnot streamer pulled me both Terra form Charizards. So
Wow.
the ultra rare and the gold rare. Same
I'm
stream.
surprised someone who does analytics buys into breaks because I feel like
Oh, those are my jam. Because like okay, you can watch what's been hit. Are they
and then
pulling from the same
get
box?
okay, touche.
Unless it's Blake's breaks, then you don't know.
I've never bought into Blake's.
We can't know because
Never can, never will. But no, ones with bounties are fun too. Depends on how they price it. Sometimes they price it wrong. One time I joined a Marvel stream and it was just highest bids get you into like the bounty, like your choice. And I came in and it was like the very end, last 2 bids. You just look and see like, okay, what have people paid? All right, I bid. So I went home with a PMG of Spider-Man 2099. This was before Beyond Across the Spider-Verse, so peak market time.
That's awesome. Congrats, good game on that one.
Those are still $2 million cards, right?
That one, yes, because I own it.
That's how much I would sell it for. It's my card.
You can make the argument, was it ever 2 million?
Did you see the 2 million? Did the 2 million?
It was mentioned in a reel.
Yeah. I mean, it's real. If it's not real, it's real.
There you go.
Year over year change. Not to keep dunking on Marvel and PMGs, but as an analyst, or if you're in the field or know numbers, the graph on the right should make you cringe. Like normally, like sales data, you're not going to see like a normal distribution graph.
Yeah,
like when it's the dates are additive on the bottom. That doesn't make sense. But it is what we thought it was.
The Bears are who we thought they were.
This is exactly what we said it would be.
If you would have had the Denny Green, like with the headset or like punching the podium, that would have been the icing on the cake right there.
Yeah. I gotta find a way to incorporate a Herms quote. Play to win the game. I mean, so many good usable quotes for data. 2-year change, I call out hockey and baseball, just because what the model shows, it starts to level out some. Hockey, it's showing like it thinks a predictive lift, but you look at it, it's more just like leveling out. Things are normalizing. So when we talk about like who's going to recover from their boom, the model thinks it's hockey and baseball first. And it kind of makes sense. You hear everyone talking about hockey collecting and,
Yeah.
And then more self-promotion. It's free. It's on the website every month. I run them, put people to sleep talking. And
Not me, man. I could listen to this.
But if you stay up, you can play fun game with other analytics YouTube channels that happen to do sports cards. And you can word what they're about to say 3 months in advance.
Awesome.
You're like, here's what they're going to be saying. So you might as well just know it now.
Here's your exact predictive lift.
They're going to tell you to do this. Don't do that. Do this. And then in 3 months when they're like, oh, buy what you love. That's why.
And that is it for the sports deck. I'd like to pull up that propensity table.
I hope that was fast enough and met your liking, sir. I was prepared with the mouse.
He was like
I want to make sure that Mr.
That
Tom
was
is professional.
That was amazing. That was so fast. I didn't have the correct site up.
Oh shit! So no. You're wrong. Hold on. Well, we're gonna go back here, and as you can see, we got some pancakes right here.
Some pancakes and prints. All right, we got our table ready.
All right, do that again.
All right. So it is 1 player per row. Every KPI that was fed into the model, if it was selected to build it off, and then all the way to the right, you get your propensity score, what the model predicted, and if it was a true or false prediction.
So when you see us buying stuff and posting it on our page and it goes against your model, just know that that was solely an emotional purchase.
Exactly. So what's really interesting about it when I'm talking about like, hey, does it pass the sniff test? I sorted it by what was false. So let's look at Peyton Manning based off of Manning stats. The model predicts if it's higher than 0.5, yes, they should be above average of price. Every video you'll see about football trading cards is Peyton Manning's undervalued in the hobby.
I agree with that.
The model agrees.
Peyton Manning card.
You could say probably the same thing about McNabb. Now, the fun part, right? Let's do some real life prospecting. So if you sort the propensity score, it's going to get you to your nearest neighbor. So let's see who the model thinks is, without a doubt, higher than average. It matches Brady, Elway, and Eli.
Wow.
So Eli because of Super Bowl MVPs, right? Elway's got some too. Obviously Brady. Now let's get to ones that I think you should stay far, far away.
Please don't let it be anyone that I buy all the time.
Jimmy, Carson Wentz. Tua is probably going to trigger people, but his nearest neighbor, right? When you think of his ceiling, Steve Young, floor, Carson Wentz.
That doesn't surprise me, weirdly.
Yep, and just think of like its trading card value.
Joe Burrow.
They were trying to pick, yep, this is going to hurt. Jalen Hurts is lumped with him. So is Lamar Jackson. But you can also look at it as
I'm surprised Mac Jones is so high up there.
Mac Jones, his nearest neighbor, right? Daniel Jones.
The Jones boys.
The Jones. Stay away from the Jones.
Drew
Yep.
Lock. Wow. Will Greer, your guy.
Zach Wilson.
Yeah. Yep. So if you took this chart, you could say Will Greer is a 4x better investment than Trevor Lawrence.
Wow.
Do not make that takeaway. The takeaway should be the ideal state Will Greer would be what Trevor Lawrence currently is.
Okay.
I am
And
clipping
what's
that without context, and you are going to be a clippable thing.
Oh yeah.
And then what's his
The takeaway from this is Will Greer is 4 times better than Trevor Lawrence for a
We're
buy.
selling all of our T-laws and we're moving into Will.
It's gonna be like, I think Will Greer is a buy. Pancake Analytics is canceled.
And then here's a good trio, right? You got Baker, Fields, Murray. So statistical lookalikes.
All right. Justy boy.
This like reminds me loosely like on Baseball Reference, where you can look at any player on any statistical year and see like the 30 top players that were most comparable to them at that time in their career.
Exactly.
I find this stuff so like wild, and like, you know, like if you just listen to people talk and not the actual numbers, it very rarely matches up, you know?
Yeah. It just shows how much weight the Super Bowl carries too.
It really does.
I mean,
and also
it changes.
The size of the fan base. I think the size of the fan base makes a difference too, because like places where it's smaller and there's just not as many people to like be fans of it's a lot different. You know, you have smaller teams, smaller communities, not less rabid fans, maybe.
So, you know, the New York bias, Joe Namath.
Yeah.
Wow.
You know, but his nearest neighbors, Terry Bradshaw. So it's in some cases it pairs vintage with vintage.
Yeah.
I just watched that Failure to Launch movie and
Cowboys.
Terry Bradshaw's butt in that. So you said Terry Bradshaw, and I just pictured him standing there naked in that movie, and now I'm like, ugh. You know, talk about triggered.
Cannot. Yep. But yeah, this table's out there for free, sortable. This isn't some weird like, you know, administrative access I have.
No, you just have to give them your email, your social, your credit card. You're good to use it.
Yeah.
No paywall.
That's awesome.
A hobby.
It's so cool that you just put this out there for people to use. I wish people use it. People go look at this. Use this information. Make yourself smarter. Make better choices.
When you did this, what surprised you?
What really surprised me is more of like confirming doubts, right? Younger quarterbacks. You know, the significance surprised me probably too. You know, I thought Super Bowl appearances would have been significant. But I guess like there's probably some really like memorable losses out there.
Yeah.
Well, you can't bounce back from that.
So like what I didn't even see is Jim Kelly on there anywhere?
Yeah, we got Jim Kelly. He I think he was towards more of the bottom. But
there he is, 34. Right there.
So 34. But let's go ahead and match him on. I don't think I have it. Yep, we got it sorted right. So it's predicting that, you know, he should be higher. Reality is he is undervalued according to the model. Right? So both him and Manning, their cards are not greater than or equal to the average.
And he went to 4 Super Bowls consecutively, right?
Yep. All
That's
those
wild.
losses, though.
Yeah.
It's like, what do you remember him for?
Yep.
I actually didn't know it was 4.
Yeah. Their name was Boy, I Love Losing Super Bowls because they went to 4 straight Super Bowls and lost. That's why people in Buffalo jump into tables and do all the stuff.
Oh,
that they
that's
do.
why? That's why?
I mean,
Or maybe that's just how they behave.
The idea here is, to do not a season, like an in-season update, but just once a year and see what the migration looks like. Because like those 3 significant categories shows like, hey, if you win a Super Bowl MVP, right? It's already hard enough to win a Super Bowl. But win the MVP, you can change your trajectory.
would it be fair to say that, let's say, like the Bengals, who are positioned and set up to win now, that if they were to go and win the Super Bowl and Joe Shiesty, Joey Cool is the Super Bowl MVP, throws for 335, 3 tutties to Jamar, no interceptions, Bengals win the Super Bowl, that when you reevaluate this tool next year, he's significantly higher?
I don't know if he'll make a significant jump, right? Because for him, it's just one season.
Sure.
So
A guy like Mahomes, who already has so many Super Bowls baked into his prices, will another Super Bowl, do you think, affect his price?
Yeah, I think that puts him into another tier, right? Because he's at 2 now. I don't know if he has 2 MVPs though, right?
I'm so curious now. Now I just want them both to win so I can see how it
just to see what happens to this.
Yes. What will happen? I want to know.
Yeah, but it also leads to another analysis, cohort migration analysis. I haven't seen that done in the space yet, but
So when do you run these? Like, will you run this after the Super Bowl? Like, how long after the Super Bowl do you run it?
So that is the question. If I want it to be a true migration, I have to run it again 2 weeks before the national.
Okay.
Which could be a good hype thing. Like, oh, the update's coming out. Just so that it's apples to apples data.
Yeah, I don't. It struck me as though, like, if you run it at a certain time, would it change the numbers, or is it always going to be the numbers? Based
like
on.
I wouldn't do not run this NFL draft.
Yeah.
Like it's gonna be good at predicting misses in the hobby. Because it's gonna be like I don't know if I ran it probably today, like Sam Darnold would like be top for some reason.
Like, this doesn't make sense. I give up. No.
I've never seen like so many people like rooting for another player to get hurt, so that Sam Darnold, who's had his chance in New York, his chance in Carolina.
Hey, that's some people holding the bag, man. They're looking for anything for people to get cited so they can dump.
It's wild.
People are buying the bag on him for this. It's like, come on,
so
guys.
crazy.
Like, you package it with like Sam Howell and Desmond Ridder, the greatest quarterbacks in NFL history. You got to pay.
Oh.
Throw in a little Kenny Pickett.
Zach Wilson.
Zach's throwing darts now. Now Jets fans want Aaron Rodgers out because Zach's throwing darts.
Sports fans, that's the problem, Tom. It's not even the analytics of the players or whatever. It's the neurotic, insane, absolutely unreasonable sports fans that make it hard to predict cards. And you were talking about winning with style. We talk about it all the time. You can have a basketball player that is like legitimately balls and is amazing, but if they don't have any charisma and they're not like entertaining, people don't want to buy their cards, which is wild to me.
Yeah. But I think eventually over time it evens out, right? Like,
yeah.
Pancake Analytics stats.com.
No, it's even funnier. So it's the whole suite. So it's not just trading card analysis. There'll be all the Comic-Con ones, stuff that hasn't made it to Comic-Con yet. So it's Pancake Breakfast Stats.
Damn it.
You get a full meal.
Yeah. You're gonna eat it all, guys. Eat it up. what does Mark always say? We're eating. So
Yeah.
we appreciate you. This
The
is
best incentive, Jeremy, to hunt the site for you is I do pancake recipe pairings hidden within certain analysis.
Oh, so there's Easter eggs in the thing? Let's go.
Jeremy's going to be cat committed to find all of them. Like he's gonna be messaging you like, so how many are there? Because I found 14.
Yeah.
And you're like, there was only 9. Like what?
And Cleveland next year, he's gonna hit me with a bunch of printouts. I'm like, okay, I'm cashing in. Here's my breakfast.
Thank you, ChatGPT. Together, me and sweet Mr. AI cracked the code.
Ridiculous. This, as always, Tom, amazing. You are, again, one of the nerdiest and also smartest people that we know. And I can't believe that you do all of this and put it out there for people to just have. Yeah. Like the fact that you do this and there's not like everyone isn't like constantly on here utilizing this. You guys, this is free. Like he just does this out of the kindness of being an awesome person for you to have this information. So please go use it. Yeah. Listen to him. He's helping you.
And when you're having Sunday morning breakfast with your kids, make sure you take a picture of their feeble flapjacks that's not painted or decorated nicely as Tom does for his family. And he'll grade them for you 1 out of 10.
Yes. And also if somebody makes the spaghetti pancakes, let me know because I want to try them. But I want to try them from someone in real life that already tried them. Not like a reel because I don't believe any of that.
You guys won't be the guinea pig. No. I have to know they're edible first.
That would taste good no matter what. Then I'm like, this is raw. I'm like, delicious.
And we end with edibles. We were this close to getting that corporate bag.
Nah, fam.
No, you're good.
Hey, we're in Michigan. It's legal. We're not talking about anything bad. So make sure you check them out. Pancake Analytics on literally everything. Especially you're real active on like Instagram. Your page is awesome. You're on Threads. I follow you there. Twitter, yes. And then pancakebreakfast.com. So you can eat.
It's not pancakebreakfast.com.
Pancake analytic breakfast. Oh my god, I already fucked it up.
Have another edible.
I'm gonna link it in the show notes anyways, so it'll be there for you. You just like
when the hyperlink doesn't work, just go back and listen to whatever the hell Tom said because we have no idea what we're talking about.
Oh god, we're stupid. He had it up on this thing too. It was like
just try every iteration. Eventually you'll find it.
Pancake breakfast food. Pokemon.
Pancakeedibles.com. Tom's site's awesome.
He's like, I didn't get any analytics, but I learned how to make weed infused brownies and pancakes. So that was wild.
I got a low sugar vegetable oil. The
trick is to put it in the butter.
Show your true colors there, kiddo.
Sorry. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. It was awesome for you guys to all join us. I think maybe Tom and Jeremy are gonna go take some edibles now. And
that's you. You're gonna go cook or something, man.
Thank you guys. We appreciate you. Until next time, I hope you had a good time and enjoy this. Make sure you follow us. If you're not following Tom, I don't know why not. Please go follow him. And his website, whatever pancake breakfast thing it is, will be in the show notes. You just have to click on. You just have to click on that. You don't have to like type out what I'm saying because what I say makes no sense, and it'll be there for you. So have a great night. Bye.